So you just started a computer store or a restaurant or any commercial establishment where you need some background music to mask all the noise that you don't want other customers in the building or restaurant hearing. You know, everybody wants to enjoy their own conversations or have a one-on-one conversation, and music in the background helps do that by raising the overall noise level. Well, it's 2004, and what are you gonna do? Grab an old computer, run Winamp on it, and just build a playlist of all your favorite songs, or maybe, you know, something a little more relaxed without lyrics, and then play that in the background all the time? Well, you probably shouldn't do that because it's illegal. You need licensing for music. There are multiple license companies out there, ASCAP, BMI, and you'll probably need to carry all of those licenses to reproduce commercial music and stay within the bounds of the law. You probably don't want to be running around managing music licenses when you could be selling more computers or selling more food and creating a better experience for your customers without wasting a lot of your time. Enter Muzak. Now, Muzak is a service that handles all the music licensing for you, gives you a simple control panel to get all of your music and even announcements scheduled in a little scheduler. I know we've all been in our favorite big box store and heard one song and then an advertisement about a TV, and then one song and an advertisement about layaway, and another song and an advertisement about ice cream. The ice cream one gets me every time. But how are they doing that too? It's not just a Winamp playlist, because again, licensing for the music. Muzak takes care of all of that and lets you schedule those announcements, schedule the music, and even handle really advanced features like multiple audio zones or music on hold. So when you call in, you get to hear the very annoying advertisement every 15 seconds. Well, Muzak takes care of all of this to the point that it's actually become quite the meme that any nondescript music is just kind of referred to as Muzak. This is the media server, music player, whatever you want to call it. It's a computer custom designed to hide out in the back of those retail establishments, those restaurants, wherever you need commercial music that you have a license and you're legally allowed to play without getting sued. This is the device that takes care of all of that. So let's talk about it. This is the Muzak Encompass CM1. There are 4 versions of the Encompass CM, so I think this is the first one. It's probably the oldest iteration of it. We'll jump right in and take a look at the front panel first, and then check out the I/O and probably even take this thing apart. I haven't seen inside it. So here on the front panel, you can see that we have what's probably just a CD-ROM drive. There are no logos on it. It doesn't say CD-ROM, DVD-ROM, anything like that. No CD-RW. It's just a CD player. And it's honestly one of those old school CD-ROM drives where it can play audio natively if you just give it power. Very cool. It has a headphone out and a volume control activity light, play and skip forward, and then stop and eject buttons right there on the front of it. It has the Muzak logo on the front panel as well, along with the Encompass CM1, a little LCD segment display right there, an up button, a down button, and an enter button, and that is it. Now this thing's pretty hefty. It feels like it's built pretty well. On the back here, we have the FCC tested to comply logo right there. A little barcode that might be its serial number. We have the 4 audio outs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know it looks like white for left and red for right, but in reality, in commercial audio, especially distributed 70-volt systems, you don't want to use stereo music. You want summed mono, and then you feed that out to all of your outputs. So you can have multiple zones of music, and also not have weird phasing or panning issues across your store. If you put stereo up in the ceiling, things can happen that are really strange with some, well-produced audio tracks that have panning. You probably don't want it sounding like music's moving from the right to the left of your store when your store is the size of a football field. Probably not ideal. So again, there are 4 zones, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you can assign them to do what you want. You have RS-232 here on the back for control. Reset, normal, and diag switches here. This switch is a momentary in both directions, diag and reset, and in the home position, it is in normal. So we have a 10100 base T network port right there, a little bit of Ethernet, and a DIN power connector, which is interesting. 5-volt rail, 12-volt rail, ground normally closed, and ground. That's kind of interesting. I guess normally closed might be the switching over to the power supply. And you need a power supply for this, and we have that. This is the Skynet power supply. It hasn't asked me anything about Terminator or Sarah O'Connor or I haven't heard anything like that out of the power supply, but it does have a big DIN connector on it and a nice Edison cord there. So let's plug this thing in, grab our handy 120 volt power here, and plug in the power supply. And we've got a green light on the power supply. Honestly, a pretty cool looking green light. It's got a little light pipe there, and I think the CD player just spun up. Oh, wow. This thing's spinning up for real. Hard disk fail. Well, I could imagine that. This thing is very old. Let's see what we've got here in the CD-ROM. Mood CM Payless. This must be from Payless shoe stores, if I had to guess. So this disc property of Mood Media, Mood is the new name for Muzak. I don't know if they bought them, acquired them, however that worked out, but now it's called Mood Music or Mood Media, and it says it's CM Country Music? I'm not sure. And then Pay 1018. So it looks like a burnt CD, and it's about half written. Not too much on there. I think this is all file-based, and it's all MP3s. I did look at the structure of this disc once. It was MP3, but it is encrypted, so you can't pull the files off the disc. Like I said, they handle licensing end-to-end, and these things also invalidate themselves, so they stop working if they don't get continual time-based updates. Hard disk fail. Let's try rebooting it. There is no power switch, so of course you do have to just yank the power cord out to do a reboot. Now initializing hard drive. Here we go. I believe in you. Start up this time. Honestly, this is a really crispy LCD display. Scan disk is running. Now initializing scan disk. Muzak Encompass CM1. All right. I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't want to stand it up on its end, but if we punch in right there, we should see that Muzak Encompass CM1. I think it might be loading in the CD-ROM. When you put in a new disc, they usually do try to download all of the new firmware. They do firmware updates on the discs as distributions as well. So it starts with firmware, I think, and then moves on to music and licensing time period, because of course they invalidate themselves after a while too. I mean, these things are DRM in a box. They are completely locked down. But again, they have to do this for your licensing. Honestly, these subscriptions for these aren't insane. Now it's about $30 a month for a Muzak subscription. So you can have your commercial music without spending a ton of money and without breaking any laws. And staying out of jail by using something like this, it's really not a bad plan. Okay, it seems like it might be boot looping now. We just keep getting now initializing hard disk. So I'm going to go grab some speakers or something. So if it does start playing, we'll get a glimpse of the audio here. But if it doesn't, I think we might be pretty stuck, and it's probably time to take this thing apart. It boot looped again. I'm calling it, guys. Let's pull this thing apart and see what's inside. Look at that, the CD player, the CD-ROM drive closed itself. It must just be power cycling itself, trying to come up. We're gonna go ahead and set this thing face down. It doesn't seem like there's screws under the feet on this, so I'm gonna go ahead and hope that there aren't. We've got a void if seal is broken warranty seal right there, and we just voided that warranty. I do know this is considered a legacy product for Mood Music. I think they still support them because the website where you can set your schedule and control this thing is actually still up to this day. So these should still be working, but it is a very, very old product. I'm not even sure how old it is, but I think 01 is probably about dead on the timeline. So no user serviceable parts inside, breaking the seal voids warranty. And we have voided that warranty. So we're not gonna get the back off unless we pull the RS-232 retention screws off of there. Obviously that'll be easy to do. We'll just give it a little twist there to break them loose. And we'll pop this thing apart. I can't wait to see what's inside. I'm pretty sure this is a full-on computer. I mean, it's got Ethernet. We're down to some tiny screws here. Hopefully this. There we go. We got the rear plate off. That is a very nice I/O plate. Big fan of that. And now we can see, it looks like the whole assembly might slide out. And it looks like the housing, the enclosure, slides off of the unit. All right, we're making progress. We got a fan. We've got a filter, smart Muzak. Look at that big old filter in there. Make sure those smoky restaurants don't end up filling all your components with oil and grease and killing them. So that is a very nice touch. Also, this enclosure, very nice. Again, those rubber feet, it seems solid, it feels solid. This is very well built. You can really hear that Sony CD-ROM drive. CD-ROM, there we go. That's the answer. And also, I noticed if you push on this label, they put right here in the center this warning that says like scratched media might not work. It's got an indent, and now that I can see it's a Sony, it's the Sony logo, and they were just covering it up. And this is a single cable with like a master-slave config. We've got the CD-ROM drive set as slave, which means the hard drive must be set as master, and they're sitting on the same bus, which is kind of cool. Oh, the hard drive wasn't connected. Look at that. I don't know if I did that. I really don't think I did, but the hard drive connector here just fell out. So now it's got me wondering, what if I put it back together and power this thing up and put the CD back in it? Ooh, I didn't hear hard drive noises earlier. Let's hook the audio back up too. What do we got? Scan disk. Maybe it was working before. Boot looped again, now initializing hard drive. So I want to see if I can cheat my way out of this thing without having to tear the whole... There we go. So it's supposed to slide out of these rails, but that wasn't working very well. So I thought, what if we just remove the board from the rails? And that actually seems to be working here. So we've got the PCB all removed. There we go, we're making progress. All we have to do now is disconnect the ribbon cable from the IDE side, and the power supply cables are soldered on, which is a little interesting. At least we know they work. We'll just flip this over. So we got power to the fan from the board, power to the IDE components, the hard drive and the CD-ROM drive, and analog devices, ADSP2186M. So that's our DSP right there, the IDE connector right there, a little Rayovac CMOS battery that's not a 2032. That's an interesting choice there. Pertronix ribbon right here running up to this LCD segment display. Westport Research Associates Inc. designed this board, and the processor is a Motorola XPC855TZ P50D4. Interesting. That must be some sort of SoC. I'm not quite sure what that is. And it looks like the rest of our audio chain here, there are two analog devices, some AD1859s, two of those. And since those are probably stereo chips, they use one to feed each channel of the four outputs on the back. Everything else looks nice. Ah, Intel NIC it looks like. LXT972ALC. I'm going to assume that's an Intel NIC or a USB driver. Look at that. This thing has two USB ports that they didn't want you to use. Put the back plate on. No USB ports. Take the back plate off. USB ports. Maybe it was just cheaper to get the Ethernet port as a combo. Maybe they needed some extra height. Maybe they didn't even connect the USB ports. And looking at the back of this board, it looks like they might not have. It might only connect to the Ethernet. We should try to boot this on some custom OS, but there's no video out, so what am I gonna do with that? Really, the last thing on this board that I assume is like a critical part of the Muzak DRM is this chip that has a sticker over it that just says 300-256HO. I don't know what this chip does, but it seems like they didn't want you to know what it does either, because that thing is, it's not just adhesive, it looks like it's resined on. There's squeeze out around the sticker itself. The board was built in 2002, and it is PCB number 160-148 revision C. So they'd already been through a few of these. It looks like we have to remove the air filter if we want to get the hard drive out, because there's no easy way to get the screws out of the side of it here. They did kind of, this thing's very stacked up, and you have to remove one thing to get to the next thing over and over. It's like a sandwich you can only take apart one direction. All this so we can figure out what's going on inside that secret computer in the back of the restaurant you like to go to. I do know that we used Muzak back in the Taco Bell days, and it was all streamed over satellite. So the hard drive is a Seagate model ST320014A. It also has very nice rubber isolation all the way around this hard drive. So it was definitely meant to endure some shock. I mean, it's a well-built unit all the way around. Honestly, a lot bigger than I thought. The internet says this is a 20 gig, 5400 RPM drive with a 2 megabyte cache. So that's about all we need to know about this. I have a feeling it runs a completely custom operating system solution. I don't know what it is, but you know, with this SoC in there, we know it's not booting Windows or anything like that. It could be running XP embedded in some form, and I don't think we're going to find a file system that we can glean anything from. So let's put it all back together and try it out one more time. Maybe just, you think the heads are stuck? They might not even be locked in their home position. That wasn't a great noise. And we've got our filter all cleaned up here. I vacuumed that out, so it's ready to go back in for another lifetime of service that this unit will probably never see. I'm sure this hard drive just ended up sitting too long, and after they sit for a while, Seagate's had issues with oil, I think, coming out of the center bearing and then spinning its way around the disk, and then the head gets into that, and that pretty much ends those drives. So all drives have issues after time, and this thing, you know, 22 years old, it's got issues. It doesn't even want to start up anymore. All right, starting up one more time. We know the fan is seized up now. Everything's hooked back up. Ooh, DDR, what's that say? RS-232 loader. And it's boot looping again, now initializing hard drive. I think she's dead, Jim. I think this thing is fully dead. Let's put it all back together. Now the CM1's all back together, I do want to try one thing here. Let's put this thing in diag and plug it in. I have not tried holding the diag switch there. I don't know how long I need to hold it, but I hear the CD-ROM drive. RS-232 loader, DDR, NFS4. Oh, interesting. Well, I guess we probably could read this file system if it is literally NFS4. Might even be able to mount this thing over a network. I do know it definitely had IP control over the network. Like I said, you would actually control this and its scheduling over the network, actually over the internet, so it would need to be able to get out, and I just have a feeling we're not going to get any farther into this thing because it is a very locked down ecosystem. It was definitely the legal and headache-free way to get music into your business. And many of you have probably experienced this before. I worked at Taco Bell when I was younger, and I remember unplugging, well, the LNB, the satellite-based version of this, and then plugging my iPod in so we could listen to the music we wanted in the store. I didn't know it was probably completely illegal, but hey, we didn't get caught, and that was 20 years ago. At least now we've seen the magic behind the curtain, or you know, the thing that sits on that high shelf in the back office at your favorite big box store or restaurant, the Muzak Encompass CM1. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching Tech Throwback. Click on one of these videos YouTube thinks you'll like, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.